Hey everybody, Pyro here and welcome to a Sound Discovery. And today we're going to be breaking down the top 10 tracks of this past week, which is November 3rd, would have been the initial release week for these tracks. These are in no particular order. I am doing the top 10 best tracks. If you are curious about the worst tracks of the week, you can check out our Patreon in the description down below. Let's get into it, guys. And coming in at number 10, we have Jacob Lee with the song You and I. And Jacob Lee is a singer-songwriter from Australia who sings pop music and contemporary R&B. So with You and I, while the structure of the song is a simple pop melody, what really brings in the appeal here is Jacob's vocals are just fantastic, just floating over that instrumental. But for me, the real appeal here was the instrumental and the nice layers of just different sounds coming from that made it feel rich and rewarding to listen to while still getting some of that mainstream pop vibe through that. But it still came with a little bit more of an experimental mix, and I really appreciated that. So it kept it fresh, kept it from being generic. Number 9 comes in with Tangerine Skies by the infamous Sublime and Rome. Well, I'm still kind of unsure how to feel about Sublime with Rome, and we're not going to get into the whole argument of, is it Sublime still? Because it's not. This is a mainstream poppy side of reggae, but it does bring a nice vibe, and this is my guilty pleasure for the week. Every week I feel like I have one or two. And this is definitely going to be my guilty pleasure of the week. The vibe is extremely nice. Lyrically, it actually pops really well, and I actually connect to it decently. So for me, even though it is a mainstream reggae song, and it's definitely not the Sublime I fell in love with to start with, I still do enjoy this. And I do find that every once in a while, typically in the summer, I have a few Sublime with Rome songs that'll pop into my typical rotation. And I think this could be potentially one of those. Rome's vocals sound really nice. They're floating over that instrumental, which is very simple, but it does the job. And I think here, lyrically, it shines. And again, I connect with this rather well. So this is going to make number 9 for me this week. Coming in at number 8, we have Milk Mustache by Raging Hormones. And Raging Hormones is a punk band from Melbourne, Australia. While Milk Mustache is definitely on the lighter side of punk rock, and you can definitely see some alternative rock and possibly indie rock influences here as well, you have a rather simple instrumental, but they know what they're doing, and it really maintains a nice flow and rhythm throughout that makes you want to re-listen to this track a few more times. On top of that, they have a nice typical kind of grungy sounding guitar in the background, and they bring in a few notes to spice things up throughout with a guitar that sounds something similar to the Aqua Dolls or what you'd hear from the Beach Boys. And it really keeps things fresh there instrumentally. Lyrically, this is one of those tracks that's talking about what is the government doing for you or us, and possibly is it time to overthrow them, which is a tried and true theme in punk. But this one is fun enough, it sounds good enough, and has some lyrical depth to it that gives it its spot at number 8. Coming in at number 7, we have Animal Shithouse with Downing a Red Stripe and Punching an Old Lady Named Penny. Animal Shithouse is a hardcore punk band from Tunbridge Wells, England. Downing a Red Stripe is this gritty gutter punk style hardcore that keeps things really fresh. And while this isn't my typical style of punk that I prefer, I was extremely impressed with the changes throughout this song to really make things pop. First of all, lyrically, you have a simple but efficient lyrics about a bitter bastard who is taking out all his anger and angst of the world on this poor old lady after throwing back a few pints at the bar. Instrumentally, I found this song rather fascinating, and especially the jazzy breakdown that kind of happens a smidge after that midsection of the song. It really helped keep things really fresh. And then it came flying back to some nice hardcore angst after that nice little freshening up. I really dig this track. It is much different than what I'm typically used to listening to. However, the changes throughout the song really helped it stay fresh for me, and I found it really enjoyable. Coming in at number 6, we have Apes of the State. I Shot a Gun Today, and Apes of the State is a Pennsylvania folk punk band. I Shot a Gun Today lyrically follows a narrator who is torn between being completely fed up and burned out with society and the government and the way of things, and yearns for change, but at the same time is caught up in that daily grind of, oh, I'm trying to plan for this revolution, but I have work in the morning. And it comes off as a really nice feel. Instrumentally, you kind of feel like it's a little simple, but it's simple in a good way. It really lets that storytelling lyrically and vocally shine. In the background, just kind of hidden back there, is a guitar just kind of shredding and doing its thing in certain areas of the song. And I really appreciated the layering there to have not just a simple sound, but if you really listen, there's some little more complex things going on in the background of the instrumental. And vocally, it just sounds really, really nice. I found myself like, okay, well, this song is a little bit more extreme than I would prefer typically from my punk music, but it was stuck in my head almost immediately. And I was like, all right, this is a banger. Coming in at number 5 is Glass by the Unprocessed. And the Unprocessed is a German metal band who consider themselves dark noise. Right off the rip, Glass intros with this very intricate, fast-paced guitar plucking that you would see typically in more emo music. And it's done rather fast, and it kind of feels like you're spiraling out of control. It brings a really nice vibe to the intro, and you're like, wow, I'm getting something really unique here. Now, as it kind of fades into the middle part of the song, you're getting a sort of newer Woe Is Me, Sleep Token, possibly Day Seeker type vibe, and really kind of brings in that kind of R&B side of metalcore, if you will, to the forefront. And then towards the outro, you bring back in that very plucky guitar, loud and proud. There was some really interesting stuff. Like in the center of the song, the instrumental is rather simplistic, but it really brings out this dark vibe that the band is trying to go for. The only thing that I wasn't sure about when I first heard this song was the sound of the snare, which you can kind of hear hidden in the background with like this tapping towards the middle of the song. And it didn't really appeal to me, but later on a couple other listens, it kind of brought this chaotic element to the middle sound of the song. And so it's kind of grown on me a little bit from there. And it's also so far in the background of the song, you might not even notice this without good headphones. So this one, though, in the right mood, especially with winter coming up, this I feel like is a great song. And I could see myself jamming this throughout the winter. Coming in at number 4, we have Flying Racoon Suit, which is a fantastic band name. Like, I absolutely love the name of this band. And the song is Witch's Streak. Flying Racoon Suit really brings a extremely unique experimental ska to the table with this new album. And it is all over the place. And it is awesome for it. This is one of my favorite tracks this week that dropped on the album, which is Streak. And it brings this nice, slow, jazzy feel. At the same time, some cooing vocal harmonies and that beautiful, beautiful saxophone. Towards the end of the song, you get a little bit of a speed up, and it turns into a little bit of almost a ska core type vibe. Or you could almost go folk punk with it if in some, like vocally, I feel like in parts of this album, I felt like it was I got almost this electric swing vibe from it, kind of like the cut capers, I believe they're called. And I really, really appreciated the uniqueness of this album, just the work that they put into it to make it sound appealing. Because experimental is not typically my style, but man, they really kept it fresh. And this song is really, really pleasant to listen to, just as an experience. Coming in at number 3, we have Canadian punk band Territories with Hello Outsider. Hello Outsider, while it is simplistic, they really hit those melodies nicely. The overall atmosphere that comes with the song is rather fitting for the season that it's dropped in. Unlike some of the other tracks that we've had this week, for example, Sublime with Rome, which I feel like would have been better in summer. But this track really fits the vibe of this year. At the end, kind of the cold weather rolling in. And I mean, just look at the album cover, for goodness sake. It's snowy. It's that nice Canadian punk. It has a great atmosphere. I just really like what this song brings to the table. It's nothing incredibly complex, but it knows what it wants to be, and it does it well. Coming in at number 2, we have Paleface Swish. And let's just take a second to appreciate that band name, because that is a metal band name if I have ever seen one. And kudos to them for that. The Gallow, which comes in swinging. This band is from Switzerland. They bring a nice mixture of deathcore, metalcore, and hardcore to the table. Paleface Swiss really did a fantastic job with the Gallow. They kept everything fresh, and this is something that metalcore has really been struggling to do lately. It's kind of fallen back on this very generic sound. Paleface Swiss here has found a great way to bring in, especially in the first half of the song, a new metal vibe, which basically almost sounds like if Slipknot were metalcore. Then they swap it up and brings in some nice metal solos with some squealing guitars, and just really changes the vibe there, and then kind of goes back to a hardcore metalcore type vibe towards the end of the song. But it's really fresh. So like you have that metalcore beginning and you're like, okay, and you have some new metal, which is just heavier new metal section. Then you have metal guitar solos, which could be pulled right out of a classic metal song, and then followed up with some hardcore breakdowns towards the end of the song. And the squealing guitars really gave me a vibe of the of that new Clowns album. I love that sound. It's keeping things fresh. And this is why this song is number 2 on the list. Now we have a few special mentions before we hit number 1. Let's dig into it real quick. So we have Kiss of Judas by Dying Wish. Dying Wish's new album just dropped, and it is a very intense metalcore that I really enjoyed. It just wasn't quite good enough to make that top 10. Extremely solid song. I would highly suggest giving Kiss of Judas by Dying Wish a go. Followed by They Can't Kill Us All by Apes of the State, which would have been the second song in the top 10, but it wasn't quite good enough to squeak in there. This is off the split EP with Apes of the State and Sister Wife Sex Strike. While this one was a really nice vibe, the thing that knocked it out of the top 10 was there was kind of a wagon wheel vibe from like Old Crow Medicine Show. And I just couldn't quite get over the similarities. That another buddy that listened to this live with me when it dropped, and they didn't quite get that vibe. So this could just be all in my head. Next one is Next Life by Anson Sebra, which is a nice R&B poppy type feel that'll hit you right in the feels. This one's a pretty solid track as well. Merry Go Round by Lake Dub. This is a nice reggae vibe. Especially if you're in the mood for something that's not so much in the mainstream side of reggae, I would suggest giving this a whirl. Euphoria by Silent Planet featuring Alejandro Aranda. And this is off their new album, Super Bloom. This really brings a nice vibe to the table. If you're into metalcore, that's a little bit more gloomy and has an industrial vibe. Finally, we reach track number 1 of the week. Let's get into it. The Beatles. Where else would this be? This is the frickin' Beatles. Listen, I'm not even a giant fan of the Beatles, but this track moved me the vibe that it brings is very, 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 very nice. And it almost has this hauntingly beautiful feel to it that I highly suggest you go out and check out, even if you're not into the Beatles. This is the final Beatles song, and I found it rather interesting. And I believe they use AI in the production to kind of make it listenable from what samples and demos they had. But I haven't really looked into this fully, the background of this. This just happened to drop, and I was like, hey, let's check out a new Beatles song. And damn, I'm glad I did. This song is absolutely haunting. Thank you all for joining me for this week's top 10 songs. If you are curious about the top 10 worst songs, in my opinion, you can join our Discord, which is in the description down below. And most importantly of all, if you would like to check out our live show that we do every Friday on Twitch, make sure you also check that out in the description down below. You can give me a follow on Twitch. And yeah, we just jam some tunes, and typically in the punk, ska, rock, and metal, or I should say core genres. And we have a few other artists that I follow that I sprinkle in there as well to keep things fresh. So yeah, if you want to join that and have a little fun with us, make sure you do that again every Friday. If you enjoy the content, make sure you do me a favor and hit that like button. Hit subscribe if you want to join the community, have a little fun with us. Join the Discord that's down in the comments. And until next time, y'all, peace out. I will see you next Friday.